And so let's see. So our first item is going to be roll.
Welcome, everyone.
So Madam Secretary, if you could please call the roll, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, Chair Obringer. First up in roll, we have Vice Chair Tsui, who
Present.
Present. Thank you. Member Arce. We have Member Arce, I believe, present.
Muted.
Member Burke. No Member Burke. Member Carey.
Here.
Hello, Member Carey. Member Chang. Do not see Member Chang. Member Claxton.
Here.
Hello. Member Corkin.
Present.
Hello. Member Deschambault. I believe Member Deschambault is present. Member Dieter.
Here.
Hello. Member Lacey.
Here.
Member Mahadevan.
Here.
Member Nason.
Here.
Member Rickard.
Here.
Member Robinson.
Present.
Member San Wong.
Here.
Member Simmons. I believe might be joining later. Member Skaradoff.
Here.
Member Williams. No Member Williams. Chair Obringer.
I am here.
With us, in addition to PAC members, we also have Board President Colin Coffey present. We have Juliana Shermer from the Regional Parks Foundation, Chief Administrative Officer. Eric Feeler, Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs. We have Lance Breed, Police Captain. And I do not believe, and Sharon Clay, Executive Assistant to the Clerk of the Board, and Sarah Kennedy from PrimeGov. That concludes roll call, Chair Obringer.
Well, thank you very much. And just a brief announcement at the beginning here. The purpose of conducting this meeting as described in this notice is to provide the safest environment for staff and the public while allowing for public participation. So pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361, the Board of Directors and staff may participate in the board meetings via phone, video conferencing, and or through a hybrid of in-person and remote attendance. The East Bay Regional Park District intends to hold meetings through either an entirely virtual platform or a hybrid of in-person attendance with the Board of Directors, designated staff, and limited members of the public to participate in person at the Park District headquarters, 2950 Peralta Oaks Court, Oakland, California, and through the Park District's virtual platform, Zoom. If the committee decides to hold a hybrid in-person meeting, attendance by members of the public will be subject to maximum capacity of 5, as well as compliance with current health and safety protocols. So this information can be found on our agenda on the Park District website, ebparks.org. Do any committee members have questions about tonight's meeting procedures? Okay, I don't hear any, so we will proceed with the agenda. So our next agenda item is item number 2, approval of the minutes from our January 24th PAC meeting. So Madam Secretary, if you could please call the roll. And is there a motion? I guess we need a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Move approved. I second.
Okay, thank you both very much. And now we can go through the approval of the minutes.
First up, Vice Chair Tsui.
Aye.
Member Arce.
Yes.
Member Burke, not present. Member Carey.
Aye.
Member Chang, not present, I believe. Member Claxton.
Aye.
Member Corkin.
Aye.
Member Deschambault. Member Deschambault. Member Dieter.
Aye.
Member Lacey.
Aye.
Member Mahadevan. Member Mahadevan. Member Nason.
Aye.
Member Rickard,
I was on mute. I said I abstained. Sorry.
abstain. Okay, noted for Member Mahadevan. Thank you. I heard an aye from Member Nason. Member Rickard,
Aye.
Member Robinson,
Aye.
Member San Wong,
Yes.
Member Simmons, I believe is not here. Member Skaradoff.
Aye.
Thank you, Member Skaradoff. Member Williams, not present, and Chair Obringer.
Yes, and I did notice that Member Chang is now with us. So has he been noted in the attendance and the roll call and the minute vote?
Aye, and thank you.
I will do so. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, well, the minutes are approved. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Board Member and President Colin Coffey, who represents Ward 7. We'd welcome your comments, Board President Coffey.
Well, thank you, Carlin. I am looking forward to the presentation tonight on our new ward district boundaries. There's great excitement on my part and hearing how staff is we're not getting this presentation till tomorrow. So, one of the reasons I'm looking forward to this PAC meeting is to hear the presentation and what they're planning to do with our wards. Kidding aside, we've had an awful lot of input on it. We've had a bunch of board meetings, public meetings on the issue, and we've had consultants working away at options and alternatives and demographic calculations and such. So you're going to get that presentation tonight. And it goes at least for the first hearing before the board tomorrow at our regular meeting.
I'll call you then.
Go back.
I wanted to tee up for you folks something we at the executive committee level voted to do. I think at our exec committee, it was either last week or the week before, it's all a blur at this point. But the executive committee voted unanimously to refer the report that's being drafted currently by management based on the meetings and conclusion of the Trail Users Working Group. Some of you attended on behalf of the PAC as members, I believe, and can augment anything I might say about it. But the last meeting was held this past month, and Brian Holt is preparing a report based on the cumulative discussions of the Trail Users Working Group. They were tasked, by the way, with looking at the prospect of the Park District opening up currently land bank land or land where we currently don't have natural surface trails, in other words, narrow dirt trails, and how the Park District might go about providing multi-use access to those trails, which includes bicycles in terms of how we define multi-use, and of course, how those might be designed and implemented. And there was a survey done of the group, and that's the key to what their what the discussions basically led to. And unfortunately, not to specific recommendations. There was too much conceptual going on at the Trail Users Working Group level, I think, in terms of conclusions. Again, those who attended on behalf of the PAC can weigh in on that. But as a result, the executive committee, upon the recommendation of management, voted to refer that report to you folks, to the PAC to review, and ultimately, if you choose, make some recommendations to us on the task given the Trail Users Working Group. It also struck me that there are a bunch of issues that involve bicycles that are now coming together and are pressing. And like so much that involves what the Park District is doing these days, it's the task that we've had since March of 2020 to deal with rather huge increases. I used a huge, literally increases in volume of park users, including hikers, picnickers, and bicyclists. So, you know, you've heard the statistics, some parks are 30% busier, some are even 50% busier. And we haven't seen a lot of let off of these volumes since we've all been opening up some. There has been some drop off, but we still are experiencing these very large volumes. And it's brought bicycle issues that aren't new, but given them new a new pressing measure to them. Mountain bike access to narrow dirt trails was something the working group was dealing with, and there are very contrasting views of mountain bikes and narrow dirt trails. And of course, the historic rule has been under Ordinance 38 that bicycles are allowed on trails in parks that are basically fire roads or ranch roads that existed in these parks. And those are defined, or at least described, as at least 8 feet in width. And otherwise, bicycles aren't allowed on narrower dirt trails, with a list of exceptions. That is an exhibit to Ordinance 38. So you folks are going to be looking at that issue. There's strong feelings from both those that are mountain bike advocates and those that, for lack of a better term, and we all coalesce into the environmental organizations, the environmental committed organizations, including STEP and Audubon and of course the Sierra Club. The other issue that's come to fore is the issue that is Briones Park, which has been impacted really acutely by the new volumes. And it's impacted hikers and equestrians and mountain bikers, in the sense that there are about 18 miles of unlawful trails that have been created in Briones. And they continue to be created and continue to be used. And there are enforcement measures that we employ that sometimes work. But it's really a key issue that, again, is coming to a head because of the volumes. And so internally, staff has developed a group that's going to come up with a proposed set of pilot trail usage in Briones that will put into effect some measures that other park systems have used to address biking and access to trails. And that is, the plan is to bring that to you. I think Jim O'Connor's overseeing that, and I'm told they're going to bring that up to you. So those are two really current issues. And the other is there's that just we all are dealing with is there's what I've always viewed as a really good compromise in a sort of effort to develop flow trails for mountain bikes. And there is one in existence at Crockett Hills that's very popular. It's, in theory, was designed as a multi-use trail. In practice, it's mountain biking. It's a mountain bike flow trail. And I certainly don't hike on it if I'm not on a bike, and you don't really see it being used by hikers or, of course, equestrians at that point. But it is a very popular mountain biking area. And the thought is, if there are areas where you can create a similar Crockett Hills type of flow trail system that aren't habitat sensitive, we should look at that. And that's always been my position since I've been on the board. There's a proposal generated by some coaches and high school mountain bike teams for Wildcat that's floating out there, and management's going to look at the sensitivity of any habitat that might be impacted, or whether that's a viable place to talk about a flow trail. Contra Loma also has in its plan the possibility of a similar flow trail type of system. So we're going to be looking at that. And lastly, and I'll stop the e-bike issue. As a practical matter, e-bikes are allowed where regular bikes are allowed on the regional trails. And we did a pilot program, and e-bikes have been permitted now on regional trails. The issue is people want e-bike access to the parks. And as any of you who have been out to our parks lately understand completely, they're already there. They're, I was in Black Diamond this weekend. I've been in Briones recently, and every couple of bikes that go by are now e-bikes. And so the issue is we need an e-bike policy for the parks and the park trails, and how are we going to, do that, or how do we enforce, if we're really going to try to keep e-bikes out of our parks. So that's the other issue. Again, so I'll stop, but this is all coming to a head because of the volume issues we're dealing with. And so you folks are going to get a good chunk of these issues shortly because they're pressing. And Rick, you'll remember, I thought the PAC did a very good job with a similar issues where there were a lot of competing stakeholders with our dog policy. Dogs off leash, dogs on leash, and various rules applicable to dogs that got updated basically based on the PAC report. After you folks spent the better part of a year dealing with the issue and the stakeholders involved on dog issues. And my own thought was, if we can do something that we all thought took a controversial issue and did pretty well with it, nobody being completely happy, but it was a policy that came out of the PAC and was ultimately adopted by the board. So maybe, Rick, a little like that one, as you'll recall. That was only a few years ago, I think. So I'll stop with that, and thank you all for having me tonight. I'm looking forward to your agenda.
Thank you very much, President Coffey. And I think I do see one hand up. Olivia, did you have a question or a comment about this?
Sure.
Yeah, a mix of both a question and a comment. Thanks again for joining us this evening and for sharing an update on the trails plan and thinking about Briones as a pilot project for mountain biking. I know here in Pleasanton, where I live, this is also a really big topic. I believe it was also recently on the local news in regards to the Pleasanton Ridge. And I know this will come back to the PAC at some future meeting, possibly even next month, I'm hoping in March. And what I'd like to advocate for and for us to think about is maybe we have one mountain biking pilot in Contra Costa County and one in Alameda County. And I can say if we decide to do that, I'd be more than happy and eager to volunteer on that, and also really put a strong recommendation for that to be the Pleasanton Ridge Trail. And with that, I would also agree to working with the various stakeholders in Pleasanton for that Pleasanton Ridge Trail to be a pilot project for mountain biking, for exploring the multi-use and incorporating mountain biking on the Pleasanton Ridge in a similar manner to what is being proposed for Briones. My question is, I'm just curious, have you been receiving a lot of comments from the Pleasanton community in regards to this topic and this issue and possibility?
Not on the pilot projects, no. That hasn't received a lot of knowledge. That's been something that public knowledge, at least. I think we've mentioned it at our exec committee, and maybe it was mentioned at the trail users group. I haven't watched all the meetings. By the way, anyone who hasn't should become familiar with what that group was doing. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. So at ebparks.org, there is a web page devoted to the Trail Users Working Group. You can find their links to all the background documentation for that committee's work, and all the 8 or 9 meetings they had by Zoom are linked at that site. So you can go to the Park District website and get all the information, background for what was done through all those committee efforts. But no, we haven't got any feedback yet on pilot projects, Olivia. But we have had feedback on Pleasanton and publicity there, and it's a very polarizing issue. We get a lot of email follow-up from mountain bike advocates, and then we get a lot of email and follow-up from groups that are kind of in a coalition that don't want mountain bikes on dirt trails. So yeah, it generates a lot of issues. I saw Brian pop up.
I did, and I was going to follow up. You pretty much answered what I was going to say, but thank you, Director Coffey. I'm Brian Holt, Chief of Planning, Trails and GIS. We haven't heard specifically about any pilot project at Pleasanton Ridge other than what's been in the media, which is looking at some of the existing trails and possibly adopting those or doing something along those lines. We have, in general, gotten a lot of input just district-wide and from Pleasanton in particular, just in support of more mountain biking trails. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, you know, we've also gotten a lot of input and concern from other users about mountain biking trails. So it's really the full gamut there. It is my intent to come back to the PAC next month with that sort of summary report from the Trail User Working Group. And we can kind of give you an overview of what all the discussion was, what the sort of specific projects we might be discussing with the PAC, and that sort of thing. The trails conversation is a big conversation. So kind of keeping it focused and looking at what we can tackle in here has been kind of a big discussion amongst staff.
Okay, and it looks like Igor, you have your hand raised.
I do, thank you. I was involved to some degree anyway, in all that process that preceded the rules that we ended up with for, excuse me, for dogs on the trails. And my recollection is that we had the greatest success when all the different parties were involved and engaged, and we all came to ways of accommodating each other's perspectives. In hearing what Colin had to say earlier about the trail by Crockett, it seems like maybe for bicycles, this is going to be a more challenging issue because with the dogs, we got a lot of really positive input from dog walkers whose job it was to walk dogs and how they manage them and all that kind of thing to avoid having them just running up and down the trails haphazardly. I think with the bicyclists, it's going to be a bigger challenge because the possibility exists that more of the trails can become strictly bicycle trails just out of sheer people avoiding them who are not bicyclists just because of the heavy traffic and the hazardous nature, frankly, of hiking on a trail which is heavily used by bicycles. So I think that we've got a real interesting job ahead of us, and we need to try to find ways to be creative and inclusive. And if we can figure this one out, I think we will have earned a feather in our caps.
Thank you very much. And I'm just looking to see, I don't see any other hands raised. So it sounds like we are in for some robust discussion at our next meeting, whenever this is scheduled to come before us. So thank you so much, President Coffey, for sharing your thoughts on this information today. So moving on to our next item. So we have a foundation update from Juliana Shermer, Chief Administrative Officer.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a quick PowerPoint I wanted to show with everybody about our 2021 achievements for the foundation. But first, I wanted to give a quick update on some of our work that we've been doing, working internally with the Park District, and it's not working, is it? And some of our bike groups, the Bike Coalition, the Bicycle Trails Council of the East Bay. We did get a new bike kiosk installed over the weekend, and the bells are out there. So I'm trying to show you a picture of that, but I'm not sure if it's working. It's not working, is it?
It says you're sharing your screen, but then nothing happens.
Okay, well, I will give up on that, but I'll email you all a copy. I just received it over the weekend, but we have our first Loner Bell kiosk station installed at Brioni's. And the intention of it is we have a bunch of bike bells that will be placed on that through a partnership with the Bicycle Trails Council of the East Bay. They're volunteering their time to put those out there, to speak with park constituents, see how they're being used, do some polling on that. And we're just trying to get a good feel for whether or not the bike community will use them, and then how the hikers and equestrians and others feel about them when they're out on the trails. So the Brioni station is the first one, and we'll be putting ones up at other parks in the coming weeks. So let me see if I can share this presentation. There we go. Can you see this one?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So we'll move forward with this, our 2021 accomplishments. So quickly, I wanted to let you know that we did end the year raising over $6.8 million. That was 416% of our budgeted goal. That did come from a significant gift of $3.3 million from the East Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy toward their endowment. That was unexpected. They ended up finding some money that they could move over to us. They were really happy with the achievement of the investment gains that we had. So they voted to put the additional $3.3 million in our portfolio. One of the things we wanted to highlight for all of you is, we are in the second year of a pandemic as a small nonprofit, and it has been challenging for us. However, there are a lot of positive things to look at. One of which is the resilience in our fundraising. We're very diversified in the types of organizations and individuals who give to us. So we've continued to see an increase in year-over-year fundraising in almost every category. We did achieve our 11th year of consecutive revenue growth. Our fund balance in our investment portfolio has grown to an unprecedented 18 million. I think that was just a couple of million a few years ago, but we've done well at growing that fund balance in large part to our win of getting the Conservancy's endowment. And we've also been able to increase our annual giving to the park district. So even in a time of some decreased fundraising, we're proud to say that for any of the programs that have asked money from us, we've been able to meet those needs, and it's been a year-over-year increase. This is a quick snapshot of the amount raised to date versus goal. Our membership program, we had anticipated a significant drop due to us giving continuations in memberships during the pandemic. So we gave people 3 months to extend, which pushed a lot of the members from one calendar year into the other. But what you can see is we had many, many new members during that time. So that increased back to almost where we were pre-pandemic. The one area that we've seen a little bit of concern or dip during the pandemic would be our grants from our foundations and corporations. And this is largely due to many of them just adjusting to decreased revenue of their own, having employees that have been out, or giving in other areas such as safety net, employment, housing, PPE for medical professionals, et cetera. So we're really positive that we'll be able to regain some of those, but that was an area that dropped. Individual and corporate donations, again, that's where the endowment sits. So you'll see that that's quite a bit higher than anticipated, but we did see continued growth from individual donors giving through donor advised funds, giving in addition to their membership. So that was a significant gain. Bequests, we raised 1.4 million. And then our campership and year-end appeals did significantly better than the 2 previous years. So again, what we're seeing is people are feeling very positive about the park district. They're feeling positive about the programs, and they're continuing to increase their level of support. A couple of the grant highlights that I wanted to share with you. We did get a grant of $82,000 from Cargill Salt to help us do a new greenhouse at Ardenwood and also develop a program with Newark High School, working on pollinator-based education programming. We also received nearly $75,000 from the California Fire Safe Council for goat grazing. And this was significant. I think the district's tried a couple of times on that one, and we're just happy that we were successful this time. We also got $40,000 from Fremont Bank for life-saving vehicle extraction equipment. If there's an accident, that helps the Park District Fire Department be able to respond. And then we got a $10,000 grant from a new funder, DuPont, for shorebird conservation work with Dock Quack. Our membership program, we did see again a 30% increase over 2020. We're at 12,200 members at year end. That's all-time high for us. And we saw a 12% increase in our donor circle members. So those are folks who give a donation on top of their annual membership, and nearly 500 gifts of memberships. So these were all really significant increases for us. Our board of directors in 2021 continued to focus a lot of time and energy and board support around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So providing training to board and staff, partnered with the Park District to try to better understand the folks that we're serving through foundation funded programs, to get some of the demographics and breakdown information. We financially sponsored the International Day of Peace, and we want to continue to support that annually. And then we completed our first full year of our Access for All free membership pilot program. So with that, our free membership program, we were able to give away 550 memberships through 14 organizations. I won't read them all for you just based on time, but you can see a snapshot of who these organizations are. They're fairly equally distributed between Alameda and Contra Costa counties. And towards the end of the year, one of the new partners that we developed was through the tribal entities. So adding them in our BIPOC outreach for Indigenous peoples, and many of them have redeemed memberships with us as well. As for program support, we were able to serve 8,100 individuals through all of the programs the Park District gives funding for. This was a slight decrease, as you can imagine. Normally we're serving around 10,000 or more individuals, but with the second year of COVID, many of the programs just weren't able to take place, and we had to give in kind of different directions for equipment or other things, but still some significant programs being funded. Stewardship, we just wanted to highlight 3 of the programs that we were able to fund last year. Again, the $75,000 for fuel reduction work through the goat grazing program, as well as $25,000 toward the ecological health assessment, and $12,500 for a tree mortality study between the district and UC Berkeley. We also continued our support and work with community engagement. We participated in several of the events, the Lafayette Moraga 45th anniversary, Tilden's 85th, and the Brazilian Room's 80th, where we highlighted our new partnership with Headlands Brewing and our Tilden Hazy IPA, which was really popular. Again, for planned giving, we were able to bring in $1.4 million, $1 million of which was from the Sutter Living Trust, and that will be towards a park improvement or new park creation in the city of Oakland or within the Oakland area. We hosted 4 estate planning seminars and 1 professional seminar for estate planning professional folks. We're working with the district to finish the 5 capital projects that we helped bring in $1 million to fund back in 2017. So there's just a couple that need to be finished. One is the Shadow Cliffs Pavilion. I believe the pavilion is now constructed. We're just waiting on the exhibits to be installed, as same as the Sunol Visitor Center. Those exhibits should be installed shortly. Pictures of Del Val. That was a good opening. And finally, last slide here, looking forward, what is the foundation going to be working on in the coming year? We're working on an extended 3-year strategic plan. So what are the priorities for us? What are our strengths and opportunities? And where do we need to put in some additional work? DEI will continue to be important. We're focusing internally on our board recruitment and selection process, looking at our policies and procedures, training of board and staff, and continuing to refine and expand our Access for All program. Externally, we're working to help build relationships, participate in community events, and doing some listening sessions with partner organizations. And again, interagency, working with the district, how can we help? Is there a way that we can better understand the constituents that we're serving and bridge any service delivery gaps that there might be? Memberships, we're continuing to reinvigorate some of our current sales programs with REI. We're going to be upgrading our database, which will help us to a cloud-based platform, which will help us to upgrade our website, which is really important. And then we're looking to launch that corporate membership program. And then again, the website communications. So, and then a couple of big projects I'm sure you've heard about. We're continuing to work with the local animal shelters, giving funding to help them as they help the district to remove and rehome the feral cats. And then we're still working on the Tilden Capital campaign and hoping to get the internal part of that underway in 2022. So that is all I have for you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I'm looking through and I don't see any hands raised. So doing one more pass. So it looks like everyone learned quite a bit from your presentation and don't have any questions at this time. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Please keep up the great work. Okay, moving on to item number 5. So this is public comment, and I do know that we have at least one individual here to make public comment. So if Madam Secretary, you could help me identify who that person is. I would appreciate your help. I think it's Mr. Joel Schrock is here with us.
Right. Hey, thank you. Hey, ladies and gentlemen of the PAC, I'm Joel Schrock. I'm the advocacy lead for 9,000 Bay Area mountain bikers called Bambi. Mountain biking has been the fastest growing outdoor sport for years, and equitable trail access in our parks is long overdue. The experience that draws people to mountain biking is the thrill of riding downhill on a narrow trail full of bank turns, rollers, rocks, roots, and jumps. Fire roads are not fun to ride, and they never will be. Loose gravel surfaces caused 2 crashes and a concussion at our Pleasanton protest ride. It's time for meaningful change, and I'm pleading with you to help drive it. To mitigate high-speed interactions with bikes on the ever-growing network of bootleg trails and the ever-growing network of bootleg trails, we need dedicated bike trails that flow downhill. Dedicated bike trails are good for everyone that visits the parks, and they're good for the parks too. Bike trails are good for park visitors because when bikes travel quickly downhill, they're not intermingled with other park users. Bike trails are good for land managers because when bikes have fun trails to ride, bootleg trail building stops. And bike trails are good for the ever-growing number of mountain bikers in our community because riding narrow trails that are built for bikes is what we love to do. The whole point of a regional park system is so that communities can recreate locally. And by that measure, the parks have been failing us. Over the last 2 weekends, I drove to Santa Cruz and Nevada City to ride bike trails. In total, my family spent 11 hours driving about 500 miles to ride bikes, yet Tilden Park, with 2,000 acres, is just 3 miles away. Ticketing people for riding bikes on trails will never resolve the issue of inequitable access. I urge the parks to immediately review and open some bike trails that have existed in the parks for decades. These well-worn trails pose little risk of further harm to the environment or habitat. The alternative is new trail construction, which we all know will take years, cost millions, and face backlash from the Sierra Club, Audubon Society, and Horsemen's Association. We've been asking for 20 years. The parks have 120,000 acres. There's room for everyone. It's time for something to be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. And I don't see anyone else. I'm looking through the list here. So is there anyone else, Madam Secretary, that you have identified who would like to make public comment on an item not on the agenda?
There is no one further. One additional public comment was emailed around to PAC members, but there is no one additional on this call. Chair Obringer.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Well, at this time, we'll close the public comment, and then we're going to move to item number 6, presentations. So we have item 6A, and I'd like to welcome our general manager for the Park District, Sabrina Landreth, who will be giving us a presentation on what's been happening over the past year. Welcome.
Great, thank you, Chair, and hello to everybody. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here, so bear with me for a second. Okay, can you, hopefully somebody can see that. Can I get one thumbs up somewhere?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, excellent. So I am going to I'm going to go through this quickly, and I apologize to some of my staff and some others who have already had to suffer through this presentation. It's going to be even better the third time around here. But this is the year in review from last year. And it's actually been, I would say, kind of a point of personal privilege because I started in March of last year. And so this was a great exercise for me to go through and reflect on my first year in the Park District. So I'm going to go through just some of the things that we did in 2021. It is not meant to be exhaustive by any means, just to give you a flavor of some of the things that we accomplished and also some highlights of some of the priorities for this coming year. I will skim over this one really quickly, but there are a couple points that I wanted to make, and you all are obviously very familiar with our park district here. But a couple things I really want to highlight for 2021 is that we have hit 1,000 employees. That includes some seasonals, but I thought that it would be good for the Park Advisory Commission to know that we have hit 1,000 people working for this park district. With that comes a little bit of growing pains as we try to put some policies and procedures in place around that growth. But by no means does that mean that we are done growing. As you all are very familiar, we have a lot of land bank that we still need to figure out what we're going to do with that, which will require staff. As we have our continuing growing interest and attraction out there in the park district, with that increase that Colin mentioned that we don't see going away anytime soon, if ever, hitting closer to 25/30 million visitors every year. And in the latest census numbers, we had over an 11% increase in Alameda and Contra Costa counties in terms of our population. Again, not something that we think is going to go in the opposite direction anytime soon. So, really, as we are looking at strategically what we want to be when we grow up here as a park district, yes, we are growing in popularity, growing in terms of the population, growing in terms of the staff. But there's a lot more that we have to do in terms of continuing to figure out how we're going to manage it all. So I've grouped the presentation into 3 buckets. Just about everything that we do here could probably fall into one of these 3: expanding access, fostering a safe visitor experience, and responding to climate change. And just a reminder of our mission there at the bottom. We're getting into expanding access, kind of on the growth theme. In 2021, we were able to acquire or lease an additional 191 acres. And I have listed there 3 notables, one at the bottom related to Dumbarton Quarry Campground, very exciting additional acquisition that we were able to make there. And I'll get into a little bit more around the campground in the presentation. But again, just making the point that we have 130,000, let's call it, close to acres, but continuing to grow. Just some highlights again of some of these key acquisitions and openings from last year. I mentioned the campground. It looks a little bit bleak in the photo there without the trees growing in. It's going to be amazing once we get a little bit more of a canopy there. I hope that many of you have had a chance to go and check that out. Incredible addition to our portfolio as the first new campground along the Bay shoreline in decades, and already extremely popular out there. And some other projects that we were able to accomplish at the end of last year. In terms of expanding access, supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion to make our parks more welcoming for all. We have this incredible amount of support from both, as Juliana mentioned, the Parks Foundation, also with our board, also with the public and you all and our staff, doing already incredible programming around this. I'm really excited about a lot of the efforts that we are already underway or undertaking. in terms of both diversifying our own workforce and then also using an equity lens as we look at our service delivery for our increasingly diverse community. Our one thing I want to highlight there is that our board voted to make Juneteenth a paid holiday for district staff earlier in the summer last year, actually before President Biden and the federal government decided to go that route. So we were, I think, probably one of the biggest agencies in the area, the first one to officially make that a holiday. I'm really, really proud of that effort coming from both our employees and the community, and ultimately from the board action. So lots of work that we are doing along DEI. I will say my perspective on this is you've got the internal, which we have a lot underway on that, and then the external falls into 3 buckets for me. The first is the public needs to know about us, that we have this incredible portfolio of regional parks that are quite frankly their own public community space. So they need to know about it. Second is that people have to be able to get to it, access, right? And a lot of exciting things that we're looking at in terms of creative partnerships with public transportation and some of our other partners that are out there in terms of access. And then the third one is really the most important, but it's also the most difficult, which is once people know about our parks, once they can get there, do they really feel a sense of belonging and a sense that, again, this is their community space. And so that's one that culturally we're going to be very, very focused on as a park district. Along the lines of expanding access and welcoming our diverse youth through outreach and programming. I'm not going to get into too much of the details of this, other than I'd love to highlight some of the data and numbers that we have here. And that third bullet point is extraordinary, that we served almost 24,000 youth through our virtual programming and in-person school programs. So despite COVID, our staff really pivoted and understood and continue to understand the need for us to get creative about how we expand our access and opportunities for kids to be able to participate in our programming that might not be in our more traditional sense of in the pre-pandemic. So the fact that we're still able to serve almost 24,000 youth is extraordinary. Welcoming, it is still on expanding access and welcoming our youth through nature and wellness programming. We've been able to jumpstart again towards the end of 2021, some of our in-person programs, and you can see some of those examples in the photos there. And really excited about more to come in 2022 as things get safer. I love to say we've got thousands of acres of outdoor office space, right? So we can do a lot of things safely that a lot of other agencies can't. And our staff has just been entrepreneurial and so creative in partnership with community on this. And just going to the numbers again, through our pivot to the digital learning program, this is not just kids, but through this, we served almost 1.7 million people, 1.7 million people last year through our virtual programming. Just extraordinary and definitely not something that's going to go away. You talk about, what are some of the highlights of the pandemic of, benefits that came out of it. And I would say that for us as a park district, this is one of them, that we are now able to reach a lot of people that maybe weren't able to come to our in-person programs and through these digital platforms. Expanding our access with new amenities. This was so exciting last year. I got super spoiled in my first year that I got to do these ribbon cuttings, and staff wanted to make sure they were managing expectations that this is not normal, Sabrina. You don't normally get to do a ribbon cutting of 3 or 4 new things every year. I thought it was great. But we were finally able to open the Black Diamond Mines coal mine experience. Please, 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 if you have a chance to go check that out, please do so. It is just extraordinary. The new visitor center at Del Val, there's a photo at the bottom there. We can see the hands that are touching. It's actually sand that you can move around and actually play around with the watershed and see kind of what the effects are when you mess around with the topography. I promise you, you'll start playing with it and you will never want to walk away. It is so cool. We're also able to open our disc golf course at Oyster Bay. I was out there last Monday and I just couldn't believe it. Just overrun with people playing disc golf and just having a blast. So clearly we are filling a need that was out there. In terms of our infrastructure, I am a public administrator at heart, and I love learning about new bathrooms, restrooms, and paved trails. So it's also one of these things we know that it really matters to our park visitors, and they comment all the time about our restrooms and how appreciative and how much cleaner and accessible they are than other places. So again, despite the pandemic and all of the craziness of navigating that, we were still able to install new restrooms, develop and cut some new trails with our small trails crew, and pave 13 miles of trail and pavement throughout the parks. Diversifying opportunity to participate in governance. Well, you all know this firsthand as we're all sitting here on our Zoom boxes. Our staff was able to pivot to something they never thought they'd have to do, which is take this very old boardroom that we have here and outfit it to 2021 needs so that we could do hybrid in-person and virtual public meetings. And so those have started to be about half or 2/3 of the directors are coming in person now, but we're still able to provide really, I would say, more democratic access for the public to come and participate in their meetings, in our meetings, and not have to come physically. And so that's another thing of the pandemic we know is not going to go away. Priority projects for 2022. There's so many projects. It's way too many to list. I just put some nice photos here. Shadow Cliffs Interpretive Pavilion. We had a few hiccups with the contractor out there, but we're very hopeful that that's going to be done very soon. Brickyard Cove over at East Shore State Park is really within days that we're going to finally remove the fences off of there and open that up to the public. And our website, many years in the making. It's for us to overhaul our website, much more accessible. The search function is amazing, and it's a work in progress. So I also want to let this group know that if there are tweaks or suggestions that you have, we are still working away on that website and tweaking it as we go. So please let us know if there's something that's a link that's broken or something that just looks off, or suggestions that we have. We really do welcome it. Okay, going to the next one, responding to a changing climate, protecting our parks and wildlife. So much work that went on last year, but I have a couple that are highlighted there with the Radke Martinez shoreline and also Encinal Beach. I really encourage everyone to get out there and see these projects firsthand. These photos don't even do them justice. These are incredible partnerships that we and restoration projects that we were able to complete last year. And our plan, the SF Bay Trail Risk Assessment and Adaptation Prioritization Plan, which is on our website, also telling us all of the additional projects that we need to continue to do with very, very large price tags. Responding to a changing climate, protecting people, parks, and wildlife. There is no bigger issue than wildfire when we do our polling, and that's true actually, frankly, throughout the corridor here for all of these public agencies. No surprise to anyone on this meeting. We were able to extinguish 14 fires last year on our property and perform fuels management on over 1,000 acres of parkland. That photo that we put in there is of our fuels crew meeting. This was a chance meeting. We were doing a site meeting with the deputy secretary for natural resources for the state. to come, and she came to firsthand see some of the fuels management work that we're doing and the tree mortality issue. And we happened upon our fuels crew that was doing some work at Redwood, and she said, "I want to meet the crew," and we had them come down, and she was just absolutely engaged and wanted to learn from them on what they were doing, learning about their training. And she was scheduled to spend, I think, 45 minutes with us, and she stayed for 4 hours. So just an example of some of the phenomenal work that we're doing in the Park District that is really serving as a pilot and an example for other public agencies, and receiving the support of the state. So much so that we were beneficiaries of a lot of hard work of our government staff and our board, and we were able to get $10 million within the state budget specifically for tree mortality issues, so that again we can be a pilot for the rest of the region on how we're doing very surgically for surgical removal, science-based removal of some of these dead and dying trees. So many things that fall into this for this current year of responding to a changing climate. Some examples there: Crown Memorial State Beach. If any of you have been out there recently, especially after the bomb cyclone storm that we had in December, massive erosion that's occurred there. That beach is not natural, and it is something that really needs to be addressed longer term. How do you really balance this incredible recreation, amenity, and access to a community? At the same time, we have a lot of stewardship concerns and sustainability concerns around continuing to replenish a beach that really, again, is not natural. And we're working in partnership with the City of Alameda and the state on that. Jewel Lake is another example at Tilden. There's much more discussion to come on that. We have been working on different options on what that restoration or project could look like, and we'll be coming to the board with some recommendations within the next month or so. Some very, very interesting project, one to pay attention to. Right, fostering to a safe visitor experience, despite the fact that we had some of our swim facilities that we couldn't open or had limited opening in this last year, with the combination of the drought, so low water, and a combination in some of them of the blue-green algae concerns. Despite that, our staff did a phenomenal job of rotating around our lifeguards so that we were still able to serve 230,000 visitors at our swim facilities, with, again, 0 guarded drownings for the 12th consecutive year. Just extraordinary work. I'm really, really proud of the fact that we were still able to provide this amenity in such challenging times. Just a little context for you. Lifeguards are very, very hard. Any of you in the business, very, very difficult to find to staff these facilities right now for a variety of reasons. But I just learned this afternoon that our lifeguards actually stay we have a much longer retention of our lifeguards than really any average agency, almost twice as long. So again, just really speaks to the quality of the program and how we have set that up. Fostering a safe visitor experience. Look at that shiny, beautiful new helicopter. We last year were able to acquire the replacement helicopter, and it really helps us respond nimbly to missing hikers and injuries and fires throughout the parks, but also we're seen as a resource for the region with that tool. We have done a lot of reprogramming our radios in terms of our regional communication. Our officers participated in de-escalation training and really continuing to try to set the bar in a lot of our policies within public safety. Right, our workforce. I left this at the end, not because it is the least important, but because none of that, what I just talked about, exists without our incredible employees. They just do everyday superhuman things. I know this group here appreciates them, and just want to say, encourage you when you do encounter anyone out in the parks or in, whatever kind of interaction you're having with them, to continue to express your appreciation. This has been very challenging as we're in our entering into our third year of the pandemic. And our staff has really just stepped it up. We have had 0 work-related COVID cases since July of 2020. I just want to say that again, 0 work-related COVID cases since July of 2020. Now, we've had, like many public agencies, had a real uptick and surge at the end of December and into January with the Omicron surge, but none of the cases that we had were workplace exposures, positive workplace exposures. They were all within people's personal lives and community transmission. So I'm highlighting that here because we really took it seriously. Our employees have followed the protocols. We've rolled out a vaccine requirement policy to our district employees, and we have a 96% vaccination rate amongst our employees. And people have really done what they need to do to keep themselves and their coworkers safe. We also were able to implement our new MOU with AFSCME, which represents the majority of our employees. With some retroactive wage increases and really competitive equity adjustments to bring our staff really within median of our competitor agencies. So really proud of that. Stewarding the public trust and maintaining fiscal sustainability, something that a lot of people say, oh, this is the boring part. For me, it's the most exciting part because, again, just like our staff, we can't do any of these projects if we don't have the money. So we continue to steward the public funds in a very responsible way, leveraging a lot of other people's money for ongoing capital projects. And something that those of you that have worked in other public agencies, I know are going to totally appreciate, which is we have maintained the highest possible bond rating with both Moody's and S&P, and just had both of those reaffirmed last month as we were going out to market to issue our next tranche of bonds. And so we have AAA bond ratings with both agencies, which is really the envy of any public agency. As you guys know, it means the cost of borrowing is that much lower for us, and ultimately saves the public and the taxpayers money and allows us to do what we need to do. So really just our team behind the scenes with our fiscal staff continuing to be very, very responsible, and our grant staff getting out there and hustling and trying to leverage dollars, both the state and federal level. Awards, I am not going to run through all of these. It's just to say, the Park District is continuing, like I said, to set the bar. We don't do this to get awards. That's not why any of us are in this business. But it just is reflective again of the acknowledgement from outside agencies and organizations of the extraordinary work that we're continuing to do, despite a lot of challenges that we faced in 2021. And that's it. I just I want to say, let me stop sharing here. There we go. Just want to say, thank you to this group, because I think you should all feel some ownership of everything that I just mentioned there. The incredible amount of time that you take to, number one, be part of these meetings, but also just I've had an opportunity to meet many of you in my first year here and to just experience the passion and the dedication that you have for our regional park system. And you've given me a ton of unsolicited advice, and I love the opinions of this group. I think when I first met this group, I was like, I know this is not going to be a group that's shy and short on opinions, and you haven't been, so it's been great. But you really should feel very proud of your contribution to the Park District and everything that we have accomplished as a team in 2021. I am so excited about 2022. This is really, I like to call myself the now what general manager. Okay, we've acquired all this property. We've gotten to 1,000 FTEs. We've got 30 million people coming to these parks and they're exploding. And we've got, this 96% approval rating and all of these things. Okay, well, now what? And so there's a lot of exciting work that we are going to be doing at the staff level and with our board and with you all. I think I just caught on to the tail end of Colin's presentation, but I think he mentioned the trail user issues front and center. I love it. I think that these are great policy issues for us to all be rolling up our sleeves and trying to figure out. And these are good problems to have. And so I thank you all for your help on this. And really, as we start to think about our our master plan, which was last published in 2013, we're coming up on our 10 years. So it's time for us to start thinking about the plan for the plan. We have a lot of strategic work that we need to do. The board was very generous in this last round of the budget and put in money for both strategic planning to start to plan for the plan and also for technology planning, as an example. Lots of things that we need to do. COVID has forced us again in a lot of ways with our out in our kiosk and point of sale and a lot of things that we probably weren't going to be doing this quickly. And it's forced us to do it, which has been great. We have a new CIO who just, I believe, started today. So he is coming from UC and has a lot on his plate in terms of looking at our technology and how it's integrated into the work that we're doing. So it's a very exciting time in the Park District. Again, thank you all for the warm welcome that you gave me last year. And thank you for all that we're going to continue to do together. I really appreciate it. And please don't be shy. I'm very easy to find. Email me if you ever want to chat about something or, please, I really do welcome the continued communication and feedback from this group. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for your thorough presentation, and we're really excited about what lies ahead and the PAC's opportunity to provide input. And so I'm just looking to see, so I do see a hand. So Vice Chair Tsutsui.
Thanks, Carlin. And thanks so much for that presentation. It's always just great to see the highlights of all the things that happened the previous year. And there's so much more below the surface that there's just not enough time to get to. And so thanks for that. And I appreciate that, responding to climate change is such a priority for the district. But I wonder also if you could say a few words about sort of the other side, what the sort of stance is and what the activities are in the district to sort of help mitigate climate change. So, are there efforts afoot to, reduce the district's greenhouse gas emissions and to try and electrify our fleet or our buildings or our equipment, installing solar, things like that? Are there things that we're doing to sort of be environmental stewards sort of at a global scale as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. And something, the staff, we've talked about a lot here, which is, really the living up to the real green of our, we drive around in these bright green vehicles, right? And it's and so we do have a greening of our fleet policy and in a plan, and we're trying to, it becomes a little bit tricky on some of these things because of the use of these vehicles, right? And the technology hasn't quite caught up in some areas, but we are maxing out in terms of our replacement. When we can replace our fleet with a hybrid or a plug-in, then we are doing that. And certainly made it very clear that we are willing to pilot certain things as a public agency. You know, we have the ability to do some things that some other public agencies maybe have more, I'd say challenges trying out new things. So definitely the greening of our fleet is a priority area. We have an environmental purchasing policy that was adopted years ago, but in terms of kind of practical implementation of it, hasn't been the teeth around it to really kind of force, okay, if I've got a park supervisor or park ranger and they've got an immediate need and they run down to Home Depot, right? And versus, you know, really going through the policy to make sure that we have done our best to go through our central stores and our kind of our green purchasing before they do that. So there's a lot of kind of bureaucratic implementation on that. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a new policy, but really putting some teeth around that. So those are a couple of examples. Solar, we've done, I'm not the best person to talk about that. Years ago, the district did go ahead and push towards putting solar on a lot of our buildings. And I know that we are down to maybe the last one or two of those that I think we're going to finish up this year. So yes, lots of, you know, kind of let's actually put a little bit of our, you know, and it's not symbolic green towards some actual implementation. So good question.
Great, thank you.
And our board is definitely pushing us to do that. So that's great.
Thank you very much. Igor.
Unmuted. Well, thank you for that very encouraging presentation. It's really always good to hear good news, especially in these days. Something that part of your presentation when you were talking about Jewel Lake kind of sparked my recollection that Jewel Lake is part of the watershed, that Wildcat watershed that flows down out of the hills across Richmond basically and into the bay. And there's a coordinated effort going on to try to make improvements and rejuvenate that watershed and maybe reintroduce salmon and steelhead to be able to get back up there again. There's a fish ladder that needs fixing and a bunch of other work that's going on as well. And I think this is a really interesting example of the park district working to the benefit of the community and the environment, not just strictly within the boundaries of the park district. The collaborating with other agencies, the City of Richmond, the Flood Control District, Trout Unlimited, and so on. I wonder if maybe you might, this is one of the things that's kind of been floating up to the surface for you, that you might give us a little update on where that stands.
Sure.
Particularly the Wildcat Creek watershed.
Yeah, so there's, in terms of the project, we have been presenting 4 different options out, and we had discussion at both our committee level, at the board level, and also out with community of 4 options with the lake. And, you know, one being do nothing, the other being, you know, full restoration of the lake, and you know, figuring out a way to have the fish passage. Each option coming with it lots of trade-offs, dollar differences, and other priorities. And so there's been a lot of work that the staff has done in terms of what those concepts could look like. And we are scheduled to come to the executive committee of the board. I don't know, we were preliminarily trying to make it, I think it's on March 11th, if I'm remembering the date correctly. It was scheduled for that. We're trying to make it. We might not have all the information that we need for that. It might have to go into April, but it's coming very soon. So definitely pay attention to the agenda. you will see that come up there, and it will be to ask the committee to make a recommendation to the full board on which of those options they want us to go and further pursue. So all of those are on our website. All the public presentations that we've done, really in talking about the importance of it and the connection to the watershed, to your point. And then again, really, what do we want to do here? And each option comes with it a lot of different trade-offs. So you can tune in within the next month and a half. There'll definitely be more, we hope, some more direction that we get from the board on which option they want us to pursue.
I'm a recovering fly fisherman, and so I have great interest. I never want to catch any of those steelhead, but I'd love to see them up in there.
Yeah, I'm married to not a recovering fly fisherman. I'm married to a full-fledged one, and so I understand the religion.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'm just looking to see if there's any other hands raised. I don't see any. So thank you again for coming and providing us with that presentation. And we just look forward to seeing things unfold as you identified. So thank you for being here with us today.
Great. Thank you all. All right. Bye.
Okay. Our next item is going to be our second presentation, 6B. And this is going to be what President Coffey referred to earlier, the ward redistricting presentation. We're going to hear from Eric Fueller and Lisa Baldinger.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Eric Fueller, Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs, and I'd like Lisa to introduce herself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Lisa Ballinger, Legislative and Policy Management Analyst.
And our role tonight is to simply share the presentation that the board will be providing input on tomorrow at their board meeting. This is simply an informational item, and want to just give the PAC an update as to where we are in this process of ward redistricting. Next slide, please. Just wanted to highlight the timeline here. The census data was late arriving. There were some issues with COVID. There were also some issues with the some legal challenges. So the information came later than normally anticipated, but we did receive the numbers at the end of September, and we had a demographer hired to help us with this process. They are running the process in a very transparent way, directly with our board in public meetings. Staff are just here to sort of keep things moving forward. And on tomorrow, there will be the public hearing, and they're going to be looking at a couple of draft maps. Based on the public hearing and the feedback, the demographers will go back and hopefully produce a map that will be acceptable to the board. As you see there in highlight, we need to submit to both counties the final maps on by April 17th. And then this November's election will be the first one with the new wards. Next slide, please. Just to be clear, the board's responsibility are to have the one public hearing at least, and then also to adopt the new ward map. And then just again, making it clear that the demographer is preparing the maps and taking in the input from the board in a transparent way. And the direction that the board provided was essentially the minimal change option, meaning the wards would be changed as minimally as possible from their current lines. Next slide, and there they are. So that's our current ward boundaries. Each ward, and then we'll get to some of the numbers, but is close to 400,000 people. So really they are quite large and quite a lot of responsibility for our board members to respond to the folks that live in their ward. So these are the legal requirements, and normally we would be joined by Jason Rosenberg, who's been a part of our team, staff team, moving this forward, making sure all the paperwork gets handed in. But the board, under federal law, obviously you can see highlighted there, must ensure equal population, comply with the Voting Rights Act, and prevent racial gerrymandering. The requirement there on the bottom is important. The total deviation has to be less than 10%, and meaning the ward with the most population needs to be within 10% of the ward with the least population. There's some other items there under the California law that the board can consider. You can read them, but probably the most important to our board was the community of interest. And then some other goals here are basically respecting the voters' choices, meaning if the incumbent board member was voted in. And so we need to make sure we're respecting the voters' choices and try to preserve the core of the existing wards. Next slide. And then I will hand this over to Lisa because this is a lot of numbers and she's really good with numbers.
Okay, well, on the slide before you, what you see is some information broken up by our ward, our board members' wards. This information is accessible on our website, so you can really dive in and focus. But for the purpose of today's discussion, what's really important is the number that's highlighted, the 14.76%. And what that is, that's the deviation. As Eric mentioned, percent deviation is really where we're focusing in to balance these wards, these elected districts. And what the deviation is it's the difference between the largest ward and the smallest ward. But what I really need to emphasize is that when you take the largest ward and you make it within a 10% deviation of the smallest ward, a different ward becomes then the largest ward. And so it's really a domino effect, and you have to go through, I think, about 4 or 5 iterations to get everything at least minimally within 10%. And so there's no real scenario where you can only touch 2 wards for this redistricting process. It's all one large East Bay, and we have to do a little bit of shifting all throughout. So what we're going to look at next are our draft maps, and Flora is going to put into the chat our redistricting webpage. So that's where you can find that full demographic slide breakout, and you can also find these 2 draft maps to dive in a little bit deeper on your own time. The first one that we're going to discuss is the NDC minimal change map. And so this is making the minimal number of shifts between the largest and the smallest ward, that domino effect, to get under a 10% deviation. So the recommended highest deviation from our consultant is 8% about. And so this map holds an 8.08% deviation between the largest and the smallest ward. And it's aiming to balance populations while making those minimal adjustments to the current ward boundaries. The second map we're going to look at today is titled the NDC Cities Map, and this one holds a slightly smaller deviation of 7.46%. And this map specifically is looking to balance the population and minimize the deviation of cities and places to the extent possible while preserving the core of existing wards. So it's taking a little bit more action to balance the cities and the places across the East Bay. So looking at it, these circles show you where there were shifts on the map. You can see a number of wards. Well, every ward was shifted in some way. This first one is the minimal change map, and I'll leave it on the screen so folks can take a little bit of a look. And on our website, and then also in tomorrow's board packet, you can find maps that have the park layer on it and other elements to dive into. And then also on the website is an interactive GIS map that has both the minimal change and the NDC cities map, and you can work through different layers. So you can put on the layers of the city boundaries, you can put on the layer of the park boundary. If you open it tonight and it's a little bit confusing, I do want to share with you all that tomorrow our consultant will be doing a live demonstration of using that tool, so that everyone, public and our board, can really get familiar with it and understand how to use that tool. So this is the minimal change map, and then this is the NDC cities map. So as you can see, the shifts were made in different areas, and this one's seeking to bring together city populations. And then this is the reference tool, what it looks like. And as you can see, you can add a variety of layers, including the minimal change map and the cities map to compare the two draft maps. You can put on our parklands, locate our visitor centers, our regional trails, and all sorts of other data, and really dive in and move around. And you can zoom in as close as you want, or go all the way out and look at the full Bay Area. So that concludes our slide deck. And then Eric and I are happy to answer any questions. And then also questions can be emailed to our clerk of the board as part of the public comment tomorrow for our consultant to answer, or you, of course, are all welcome to join the public meeting, the public hearing tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you both for your presentation. And I know redistricting is happening all over the place. I'm continuing to go through that experience myself in the city of Concord tomorrow night as well. So this was more of an information item. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see anybody's hands raised. So I think that we are done with that. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing how the final lines come down with this process.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 8, report from the chair. So I did want to share that there is a field trip opportunity that is available this Friday. I'm trying to pull up, I don't know if Madam Secretary has more details, but we do have to RSVP by tomorrow, and it's kind of a unique opportunity here. I think it got sent out to all of us. It looks like it did. So this is an opportunity. There's an in-person board site tour this Friday, and then PAC members are invited as well. And so we need to RSVP by tomorrow, March 1st, if we want to attend. And I'm pulling open the flyer here to let you know where we'd be going. So it would start out at the Bay Point Regional Shoreline at 9:30. And then after that, departing for the Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, home of the Port Chicago 50 at 11:15, arriving there at 11:35, enjoying lunch after touring that area, and then heading to the Lafayette Moraga Trail at 1:15. And then the tour is going to conclude at 2:30. So it sounds like a very interesting day. And the transportation is provided by individuals. So everyone would have to find a way to get out to, the Bay Point Shoreline Regional Park. But just want to make sure everybody knows that you do need to RSVP by tomorrow if you'd like to participate in this opportunity. And then I think the other item, and Eric is still here, so we have heard a bit about the Trail Users Plan. And so that's coming next month, but also just Eric, if you could share with us, I know that the PAC has been interested in also, any kind of updates when that's going to come to us, and then any kind of other opportunities that we might have to provide. We got a lot of informational items tonight, which is really great. But anything that opportunities that you see for us to also be able to provide some input in the coming months.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know we've had several discussions as a group about what I like to call reimagining the PAC, but making some of these meetings more of a working type meeting and being more consistent in the work plan throughout the year. And so we've done an inventory of all the PAC members, the board, the executive leadership team of staff, and the general manager. And we've put that together in a living document that is currently being reviewed by the deputy general manager for comment, and also some suggestions that she's made verbally to me that I think are going to be very helpful to add to the document. So that hopefully will be able to be presented to this group between now and the March meeting, and then hopefully have a discussion at the March meeting about some proposed next steps. But really what I think we're trying to make sure is that some of these meetings are working meetings and not just informational. And as you heard from Brian earlier, the trail item will be coming back on at the March meeting as well. And I know that there's some interest in the PAC's role in things like the budget earlier on and some other planning items. So we are still working on it, but we have not forgotten that we plan to bring that back to the PAC and receive additional input, and then hopefully we will have at a certain point an opportunity for at least the leadership of the PAC to present to the board and seek approval of kind of the direction that we are hoping to head into.
Thank you very much. Okay, and next item, any board committee reports? I don't know that any board committees have met, so I don't think that there are any reports to share this evening.
I think we have PAC member comments too.
Did I miss that? Thank you. I apologize for skipping over item number 7. Yes, that's what I was looking for. So do you have a comment, Vice Chair Tsutsui, since you brought that up?
Nope, just that one. Just that one.
Okay, great. Is there anybody I'm looking to see? I don't see any hands up. So it doesn't look like we have any comments at this time. Okay, I don't have any old business. Does anyone else? Okay, new business. All right, well, if that's the case, then the next order of business is to adjourn to our meeting on March 28th, tentatively scheduled for March 28th. And I look forward to seeing everyone then. So thank you very much for your time this evening. Have a good night.
Nice to see everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.